So, more defamation shenanigans. What am I talking about now? Jeremy Vine has indicated that he is to sue Joey Barton. So what's all this about then? Just in case anybody doesn't know, Jeremy Vine is a television radio presenter who's also a key member of the cycling fraternity. And Joey Barton, I am given to understand, is a footballer. So what's happened? Barton used a particular phrase. Now this is going to be fun, trying to get this around the YouTube algorithm. He described Mr. Vine as, I'll say bike bonds, but with an N instead of a B. And Vine has now indicated he's going to issue proceedings about that. So what are his chances of success, and what are the issues likely to be? Because this does actually raise some sort of quite interesting sort of issues that are very relevant to anybody who ever gets involved in any sort of rows on social media. So what's the alleged defamation? Well, it's just this one word or phrase. I suppose it's two words. So the issue is going to be, does that meet the test for defamation? And as I've explained on sort of other videos like the Farage-Corbyn one, Vine would have to show that that was an untrue statement that lowered his reputation in the minds of right-minded people. But what's Barton going to say? Well, Barton's presumably going to say, look, I clearly didn't mean this seriously. It's just an insult. So is that relevant? Yes, it is, because a defence to defamation is that the statement was, quotes, mere vulgar abuse. In other words, it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's just an insult. Remember that Penn and Teller thing where they used to, investigate stuff, and they used the title was a rude word, but they never said anybody was a crook, or they never said anybody was, fraudulent or ripping people off or corrupt or anything like that. They would just say this person is an a-hole, and they were very explicit that the reason they did that was to avoid defamation proceedings. So they would say, here's all the facts as we know, but we're not going to comment on these facts and what the conclusion is. We're just going to say this person's an a-hole, and you draw your own conclusions as to why that is. So, mere vulgar abuse is a useful defence. But what's going to happen next? Well, the first thing will be one of these what we call meaning hearings, where a judge will decide what does that phrase actually mean. Vine will presumably argue that it means that he is the P word, and Barton's team will undoubtedly argue no, it's mere vulgar abuse. So the test would be, what would your average hypothetical reasonable person hearing or seeing that statement, as somebody who's not too naive but also not too suspicious or open to gossip, what would they think it means, bearing in mind the context in which it was made? Now, this was made just in a Twitter spat about cyclists versus motorists and all this sort of nonsense. Now, we have this idea, like say, bane and antidote, and that you've got to take the statement in context. You can't just cherry pick one phrase or word or statement and say, look, this is defamatory. You've got to look at the context. And as people have said, something might be defamatory at a public meeting, whereas it wouldn't be defamatory if you were just chatting with your friends in the pub. There are some exceptions to this gratuitous insult thing, because there was a case, Stephen Burkoff, the actor, he was described in a review in sort of quite disparaging terms. They're basically about just physical appearance and how he came across. But actually that was found to be defamatory. Personally though, I think that was a very unusual one-off case, and I just don't think that that would actually have succeeded today. I think things have moved on, and people are getting to the stage of, look, it's becoming harder to claim for defamation, because you've got your Article 10 rights, freedom of expression, etc., etc. But what if the judge was to find and say, actually, I do find that your average reader would take this as an allegation of the P word? Well, remember, for a statement to be defamatory, you have to prove it has either caused serious harm or would tend to cause serious harm. And you have to show that with evidence. It's not like the old days where libel was defamatory, actionable per se. You didn't have to show any damage. You just have to say this is a serious, this is a libel. Therefore, you can assume that I will suffer a loss from this. Well, now that's not the case. However, if you accuse somebody of a criminal offence that can attract a sentence of 12 months or more, the courts tend to say, actually, yeah, that is, something that will cause you serious harm if people believe it, because, just by definition, saying you are a criminal. And also we saw in the Fox case that particular allegation is seen as very, very serious. So that's going to be the first stage. Now, this is going to be one of those cases, I suspect, that ends after the meaning hearing, because if the judge finds it's mere vulgar abuse, well, that's the end of Jeremy's claim. If, however, the judge says, no, this was an accusation of the P word, then Barton would be in trouble, because he's not trying to claim, presumably, that it is true. He's just saying it is an insult. It's a bit like that Elon Musk thing, you remember with the cave diving guy, where Musk got away with it by saying, oh, that's just that's just a phrase we use just to insult people generally. So yeah, so my prediction is, assuming this actually does get issued, that there will be a meaning hearing. My gut feeling is that it's probably going to be the mere vulgar abuse thing because of all the context. I think it would be very easy to say, look, this is clearly not an allegation that this is, that he's really doing that. This is just a gratuitous insult. It might be a distasteful one and a nasty one, but no right-minded person would take it seriously. So if that happens, then Vine would be forced to discontinue. If there was a finding, I mean, Barton could theoretically try and argue, public interest, opinion. I mean, opinion wouldn't succeed because this is clearly an allegation of fact. So yeah, like I say, my guess on this one is that unless both parties just decide to throw lots of money at this pointlessly, that this one will settle after the meaning hearing, assuming it even gets that far. But yeah, so remember that you're always safe just gratuitously insulting somebody, so long as you don't put any factual allegations in there. Right, so where are we today? We're at a place called Tresillian. Now, the interesting thing about this is lots of interesting things here. First of all, this is the highest navigable point on the Truro River, Carrick Roads, which is the big river system that comes up from Falmouth. Although these days, you'll be lucky to navigate up here on a Lilo. There's rather a nice bridge. There's also a church just around the corner, which I thought you could actually, I thought you could get the church and the bridge in shot from where I'm sat, but you can't. I might try and get some more pictures if I can sort of stand on the roadside. But the old church, remember that church I went in, the collapsing one? Well, all the bells and the bell tower and the font and everything, actually, they took them out of that church and put them in the, quote, new church. Also, this is the site of the Wheel Inn pub, which is where I'm sat now, which is really, again, quite interesting because it's where Lord Fairfax stayed during the Civil War. And they actually had sort of like peace negotiations between the two sides. I mean, it's a very nice pub. I can understand why, you would want to use it for your peace talks. But there you go. If you found that, hopefully you found that vaguely useful, vaguely interesting. I think that was quite vaguely accurate. I mean, I did have to pad it out a little bit because it's basically, yeah, somebody's suing. Here's some basic points of the law. But if you did, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that YouTube type of stuff.